Heartland Season 20 is coming, and after 20 years, this might be the most dangerous season this family has ever faced. Because right now, Amy Fleming is standing at the edge of a decision that could end everything Heartland has ever stood for. And nobody, not even the writers, seem to be hiding how big this really is. CBC has confirmed it. Season 20 is real, it is happening, and it is set to premiere on October 4, 2026, on CBC and CBC Gem, marking a full 2 decades of this family's story. But here's the part that should worry every single fan watching right now. This isn't being treated like just another season. CBC itself called it a milestone, and when a show that has run for 19 seasons starts using words like that, it usually means something massive is coming and maybe something final. Let's talk about why this season feels different from anything Heartland has ever done before. Filming began on May 12, 2026 in Calgary, Alberta, and continued through the end of August, right across the real locations that have played Hudson since 2007, including High River and Millerville. The same writers who have shaped this family for years are back: Heather Conkey, Mark Haraun, Ken Craw, Pamela Pinch, and Bonnie Fairweather, along with directors Dean Bennett and Ken Filewich. That continuity matters because these are the same people who built Amy's story from the very beginning, and now they are the ones deciding how or if it ends. And when CBC released its own description of what's coming, they didn't promise comfort. They promised the Bartlett-Fleming family facing the joys and the pitfalls of ranch life while defying the odds and coming together like never before. Read that again. Defying the odds. Coming together like never before. That is not the language of a show easing into a quiet farewell. That is the language of a show preparing its family and its audience for something enormous. Now let's get into the moment that actually started all of this, because everything about Season 20 traces back to one gut punch of a finale. Season 19 ended with an episode called Forgiveness, and it did not give fans peace. It gave them a proposal. Nathan got down on one knee in front of Amy, and in an instant her entire future, the ranch she was raised on, the daughter she is raising, and the life she has spent years building, was suddenly hanging on a single answer she has not given yet. And that's confirmed. CBC has already stated that Season 20 will center on Amy facing a major decision, one that will determine whether she stays at Heartland, whether she leaves for a new life with Nathan, or whether she somehow tries to hold on to both. And that last part is where things get complicated because Lindy is not just a detail in this story. Whatever Amy decides is going to shape her daughter's entire childhood. And that is not a small thing to gamble with, even for love. Here's what makes this even harder to predict. Amber Marshall, the woman who has played Amy Fleming since Heartland began, has openly said she hopes the show continues for another decade or more. That is not the mindset of someone preparing to write her character off the ranch forever. But hope from an actress and direction from a network are two very different things, and CBC calling this a milestone season, while simultaneously building toward Amy's biggest decision, yet is not a coincidence. Feels calculated. It feels like the kind of setup a show uses right before it either reinvents itself completely, or starts closing the book for good. And once you notice that pattern you cannot unsee it, because Season 19 already spent its entire runtime quietly wrapping up loose ends, Georgie moving on with her own path after her Grand Prix win with Phoenix, characters becoming more independent, conflicts resolving instead of escalating. A show does not clean its own house like that unless it is preparing for either a massive turning point or an ending. So as Season 20 heads toward that October 4th premiere, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. This is not being built as a routine continuation. This is being built as a turning point for the entire Fleming Bartlett family. And Amy's answer to Nathan is only the beginning of what's about to change. Let's start with someone who barely appeared in Season 19, but who might end up being one of the most important pieces of Season 20, and that's Tim Fleming. Fans noticed his absence all throughout the last season, and that absence felt intentional rather than accidental. When Tim showed up for that quiet porch conversation with Jack, it didn't feel like filler. It felt like the show reminding everyone that Tim is still tied to this family, that his story is not finished, and that his presence still matters even when he's not front and center. And if Season 20 really is being built around a milestone, around the idea of this entire family coming together like CBC's own description suggests, then Tim being pulled back into the picture makes complete sense. You don't build toward a 20th anniversary season and leave one of the family's founding figures on the sidelines. If there's a wedding, a reunion, or any kind of major family milestone coming, Tim being sidelined any longer just doesn't add up, and it wouldn't be surprising if season 20 gives him one of his biggest arcs in years. Now here's where things get emotionally complicated, and it circles right back to Amy and Nathan. Nathan didn't just propose at the end of season 19. He made it clear in his own words and actions that Amy and Lindy are his family now, that he sees a future built around them specifically. And after everything Nathan went through during season 19, constantly cleaning up messes that weren't his fault, constantly absorbing the fallout from his sister's chaos, constantly apologizing for things he never caused, it made sense that he finally started thinking about what he actually wants. That's part of why the idea of a future somewhere else, potentially away from the ranch, started forming in his mind. But that is also exactly why Amy's answer is not going to come easily. Heartland isn't just a location for Amy. It's identity. It's where she grew up, where she built her entire career, where Lindy is being raised surrounded by the people who love her most. So when Nathan essentially asks her to imagine a life outside of that, he's not asking her to pack a bag. He's asking her to reconsider who she is. And that's precisely why a fast answer feels almost impossible. Amy can be completely in love with Nathan and still be terrified of walking away from the only life she's ever known. And both of those feelings can be true at the exact same time. It also lines up with everything CBC has already confirmed, that this decision is central to the entire season, and that it's not being treated as a simple yes or no. While Amy and Nathan's storyline carries the emotional weight of the season, there's another relationship quietly building tension underneath everything else, and it involves Katie. If you paid close attention during season 19, the way Katie reacts whenever River's name comes up says a lot more than her actual words do. She plays it off like it's nothing, like there's no jealousy involved, but the tension between her and Dex has been sitting right under the surface for a while now, and it's the kind of slow burn storyline that shows like this love to eventually pay off. The complicated part is that Katie's friendship with River is real, and River genuinely trusts her, which makes an obvious betrayal storyline feel unlikely, and honestly a little beneath what this show usually does. A more realistic path forward is River and Dex's relationship falling apart on its own, for reasons that have nothing to do with Katie directly, which would then open the door for Katie and Dex to become an actual couple without turning Katie into a villain. That kind of slow, natural shift fits Heartland's storytelling style far more than a dramatic betrayal ever would. And when you step back and look at everything together, Tim potentially returning in a bigger way, Amy and Nathan's future hanging in the balance, Katie and Dex's tension building toward something real, it all points toward one bigger picture. A 20th season built around family, milestones, and long overdue reunions. CBC's own words keep echoing here. The idea of this family defying the odds and coming together like never before. That phrase wasn't chosen randomly. If season 20 is truly leading towards some kind of large-scale family reunion, imagine what that would actually look like. Amy and Nathan working through the biggest decision of their relationship. Katie navigating her own romantic complications. Tim finally back in the picture in a meaningful way. Jack surrounded by nearly every generation of his family at once. After years of characters growing up, moving away, and building separate lives, a moment like that would hit differently than almost anything this show has done before. And it would explain exactly why CBC is treating this season as something far bigger than a routine 10th episode run. Now let's bring all of this together, because when you look at the full picture of season 20, it stops feeling like just another chapter of Heartland, and it starts feeling like the moment this entire family has been building toward for 20 years. Every storyline left hanging at the end of season 19 seems to be pointing in the same direction. Tim's quiet return. Amy standing at the edge of the biggest decision of her life. Katie's feelings for Dex finally bubbling to the surface. And CBC's own words hanging over everything. A family defying the odds and coming together like never before. That is not the kind of language a network uses for a filler season. That is the kind of language reserved for something they know fans are going to remember for years. And that's really what makes Amy's decision so painful to think about. This isn't a simple love story anymore. This is a woman who has spent her entire life defined by this ranch, this family, and this land, now being asked to imagine a version of herself that exists somewhere else entirely. Nathan isn't a bad option. He's not asking for anything selfish. He's asking Amy to choose a future with him and Lindy, a future built on love instead of obligation. A future where he isn't constantly cleaning up someone else's chaos. But love was never really the problem here. The problem is that Heartland isn't just where Amy lives. It's who she is. And that's exactly why so many fans are dreading this decision just as much as they're anticipating it. Because there is no version of this choice that doesn't cost Amy something deeply personal. If she stays, she risks losing Nathan and the future he's offering. If she leaves, she risks losing the only identity she's ever known, along with everything Lindy has grown up surrounded by. There is no easy answer here, and honestly, that's what makes this storyline feel so real. Life rarely hands people clean, painless choices, and neither does this show. Then there's Tim, quietly waiting in the background of all of this. After everything this family has been through, after every argument, every reconciliation, every year of him fighting to remain part of a family he once nearly lost completely, it would mean everything for him to finally be present for a milestone moment like this. Imagine Tim standing there if Amy and Nathan's story reaches its next chapter, not as an outsider looking in, but as someone who fought his way back into being family in every sense of the word. That alone could be one of the most emotional moments this show has delivered in years, and after 19 seasons of build-up, fans have more than earned a moment like that. And we can't forget Katie, because her story matters just as much, even if it's quieter. Watching someone slowly realize their feelings, while trying to protect a friendship they truly value, is one of the most human storylines Heartland could tell right now. If Katie and Dex's story unfolds the way it's been building, slowly, honestly, without turning anyone into a villain, it could end up being one of the most satisfying relationship arcs in the entire show.